Hollywood has always worshipped the beautiful and the bold, but some stars played by their own rules, rules that shattered marriages, inflamed tabloids, and set the entire industry ablaze. At the center of it all stood Elizabeth Taylor, a legend whose love life has been dissected for decades. But what if we told you the real story is far messier than the headlines ever dared to print? The secrets, the betrayals, and the broken hearts weren't just tabloid fodder. They left a mark on everyone she touched, from friends to rivals and even entire families. So, how much do you really know about the affairs that rocked Elizabeth Taylor's world and Hollywood itself? Buckle up. You're about to discover a story far wilder than you ever imagined, from grieving widow to scandalous affair. For most of America, Elizabeth Taylor was still reeling from the tragic death of her third husband, the charismatic producer Mike Todd. In the late 1950s, public sympathy was firmly on her side, but grief has a way of blurring boundaries, and that's when Eddie Fischer entered the picture. Eddie wasn't just a friend, he was Mike Todd's closest confidant, and also the husband of Taylor's own friend, the ever-wholesome Debbie Reynolds. What started as comforting late-night conversations soon evolved into something else entirely. As Taylor clung to Fischer, Hollywood insiders began to whisper. The press pounced when Fischer abruptly left Reynolds and their two children to move in with Elizabeth. The betrayal was so public, so raw, that even President Eisenhower was reportedly appalled. Fans wrote angry letters, and the Catholic Church condemned Taylor as a homewrecker. Tabloid headlines screamed, but behind the scenes, the wounds ran even deeper. Debbie Reynolds later admitted she was blindsided. For years, she couldn't understand how her best friend could take her husband. For Taylor, the scandal was a whirlwind, love, loss, and infamy all colliding at once. Her friendship with Reynolds was shattered for over a decade. As for Fischer, his career never truly recovered. Yet in a strange twist of fate, Taylor's public image emerged almost bulletproof. The more the press attacked, the more audiences seemed to root for her resilience. But there's no sugarcoating it. The Fischer-Reynolds-Taylor triangle marked a turning point, not just for the three of them, but for how Hollywood would handle scandal and stardom from then on. The world watched, and no one would ever see Elizabeth Taylor as just a grieving widow again. Cleopatra, Burton affair. If the Fischer scandal was a storm, then the affair with Richard Burton was a hurricane that redrew Hollywood's map. By the time Taylor arrived on the set of Cleopatra in Rome, she was already notorious. The film itself was plagued by endless delays, ballooning budgets, and headlines about Taylor's extravagant demands. But nothing could compete with the electricity between her and Burton. It started innocently enough. Co-stars, friendly banter, long evenings discussing Shakespeare and stardom. But their chemistry was volcanic. Soon whispers became shouts, and the paparazzi trailed them through Roman ruins, capturing stolen kisses and secret rendezvous. Both were married, Taylor to Fischer, Burton to Sybil Williams. The Vatican even weighed in, condemning their erotic vagrancy. The scandal exploded onto front pages around the globe. The affair didn't just end marriages, it ended careers. Sybil was left to raise the Burtons' children, while Fischer was cast aside, once again a casualty of Taylor's passions. For Taylor and Burton, the public spectacle only fueled their obsession. They'd argue, make up, spend lavishly, and perform together in a string of films where their real-life drama bled into their roles. Their love affair was both legendary and deeply destructive, two supernovas colliding, leaving nothing but chaos in their wake. The Cleopatra set became ground zero for Hollywood's most expensive scandal. Studios panicked as shooting delays and negative publicity threatened to sink the entire production. Paparazzi documented every outburst, every embrace, every shattered champagne bottle. Yet somehow Taylor and Burton emerged as the new golden couple of the 60s, adulterous, tempestuous, and unapologetically in love. Their affair was bigger than the movies themselves, a real-life drama that changed the way Hollywood and the world talked about infidelity and fame, the Forgotten Fling. Frank Sinatra was no stranger to scandal or starlets, but his brief, steamy dalliance with Elizabeth Taylor remains one of Tinseltown's best-kept secrets. Their paths crossed in the late 1950s, when Taylor was still reeling from the Fisher-Reynolds debacle, and Sinatra was between marriages and burning through romances with the world's most beautiful women. Theirs wasn't the kind of love story that inspired ballads. It was all heat, intrigue, and hotel rooms booked under fake names. Hollywood insiders knew, but the public didn't. Sinatra reportedly adored Taylor's wicked sense of humor and found her willingness to break rules as irresistible as her famous violet eyes. For Taylor, Sinatra offered a reprieve, a wild, unpredictable escape from the suffocating glare of her own notoriety. Their fling didn't last long, and both parties quickly moved on. But it left an imprint. Rumors swirled for years that Sinatra would call Taylor late at night, reminiscing about their tryst and hinting at what could have been. Both denied it, but the whispers never stopped. Even decades later, their brief affair remained a tantalizing what if in Hollywood lore, a footnote overshadowed by Taylor's more public scandals, but no less intoxicating for those who knew the real score behind closed doors. The Mike Todd myth. Mike Todd is often remembered as the husband Taylor truly loved, her one happy ending before fate intervened. But few talk about the wild, combustible nature of their union. Todd was older, magnetic, and as tempestuous as Taylor herself. Their courtship was a high-speed roller coaster of lavish gifts, tabloid headlines, and notorious parties that often spiraled into chaos. Todd was married when he first pursued Taylor, and their flirtation was hardly a secret. His relentless charm swept her off her feet, but it left plenty of casualties behind. Todd's previous wife, actress Joan Blondell, famously called Taylor the other woman and warned her friends that marrying Todd meant marrying into madness. For Taylor, the attraction was undeniable. Todd was a man who understood power, spectacle, and the lure of forbidden love. Their marriage was passionate, filled with grand gestures and bigger-than-life arguments. Insiders recall Todd's jealousy, his need to control, and Taylor's refusal to be tamed. There were whispers of affairs on both sides, masked by the glitter of Hollywood's party circuit. But when Todd died in a plane crash, he became a martyr in the public imagination, erasing the darker realities of their relationship. Taylor mourned him deeply, but the myth of perfect love left out the chaos that defined their time together. The truth? Even Taylor's happiest marriage was shaped by scandal, power games, and restless hearts always searching for more. Marriage number 5. When Taylor and Burton divorced in 1974, most assumed the tornado had finally lost its energy. But barely 16 months later, they shocked the world again, remarrying in a private ceremony in Botswana. Their second act was supposed to be a fresh start, but old habits die hard. Burton's drinking had worsened, Taylor's health was fragile, and the press followed their every move with even more intensity. This time, the cracks appeared faster. Arguments turned violent, their lavish spending bordered on self-destruction, and rumors of infidelity haunted both sides. Friends said Taylor was desperate to recapture the magic of their first affair, while Burton seemed haunted by regret. Their second marriage lasted just 9 months, dissolving in a flurry of lawyers and screaming matches that left both emotionally spent. What made this round even more complicated were the affairs that surrounded it. Both Taylor and Burton were accused of seeking comfort in the arms of others, sometimes out of spite, sometimes out of boredom. Their open secret flings became fuel for gossip columns and party circuit whispers. Elizabeth, ever the drama magnet, would later say that she and Burton were addicted to each other, unable to break the cycle of passion and destruction. Their double marriage left a trail of heartbreak, not just for themselves, but for their children, ex-spouses, and friends who got caught in the crossfire. Taylor's willingness to risk everything for love became her trademark, but it also made her the most dangerous woman in Hollywood romance. If her affairs were theatrical, their aftermaths were pure tragedy, played out on the world stage for everyone to judge. The Victor Luna Affair, 220 words. By the late 1970s, Elizabeth Taylor was nursing her wounds and searching for meaning outside the Hollywood bubble. That's when she met Victor Luna, a Mexican lawyer nearly 20 years her junior. Their romance, though brief, was a sudden jolt to Taylor's public image. Here was a woman in her mid-40s, still magnetic, still unafraid to scandalize by taking up with a much younger man. For a while, the affair played out in secret, But when the story finally broke, the gossip columns exploded. Luna was captivated by Taylor's fire and fame, while she was drawn to his youth and open admiration. Their whirlwind romance quickly became headline news, but cultural differences, language barriers, and the relentless glare of celebrity proved too much for the couple. The relationship fizzled almost as quickly as it began, leaving plenty of critics to speculate. Some called Luna a mere rebound after Taylor's breakup with John Warner. Others dismissed him as a trophy, a fleeting distraction for a star who thrived on public attention. But for Taylor, the Luna affair was more than just a footnote. It was living proof she could still shock, still inspire envy and awe, even as Hollywood's rules began to change. Her appetite for danger and drama only grew stronger with age. The John Warner Interlude. When Elizabeth Taylor married John Warner, a rising Republican politician, it was seen as an unlikely move. After a string of tempestuous romances, Taylor was now a senator's wife, expected to play host at formal dinners and pose for dignified press photos. But the transition from Hollywood's queen to Washington's hostess was anything but smooth. Almost immediately, Taylor found herself isolated and restless. Warner's political ambitions took center stage, and Taylor, deprived of the spotlight, began to spiral. She drank heavily, gained weight, and confessed to friends she was deeply unhappy. The tabloids speculated about affairs, both real and imagined. Taylor was rumored to have sought solace in flirtations and late-night rendezvous with D.C. insiders, lobbyists, and even a few younger congressional aides. Whether or not all the rumors were true, the pattern was unmistakable. Taylor was a woman who craved excitement, connection, and, most of all, love on her own terms. Warner and Taylor separated in 1982, their marriage crumbling under the weight of unmet expectations and Taylor's unquenchable desire for adventure. Even outside Hollywood, Taylor's love life continued to make headlines, proving that she was incapable of living quietly, even in the corridors of American power. Larry Fortensky and the Final Fling. By the late 1980s, Taylor's wildest days seemed behind her. She had survived scandals, heartbreak, and public scrutiny that few could imagine. Enter Larry Fortensky, a construction worker 20 years her junior, whom she met in rehab at the Betty Ford Center. To outsiders, it looked like another case of Taylor seeking out forbidden fruit. But for her, Fortensky represented something different, the hope of a normal life. Their romance was a tabloid sensation from the start. The wedding, held at Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch, cost more than most Hollywood blockbusters and drew a global media circus. Fortensky was gentle, loyal, and unimpressed by Taylor's fame, qualities she desperately needed after years of chaos. But old habits die hard. Taylor's need for drama, combined with Fortensky's struggles to adjust to her world, soon created friction. Rumors of affairs swirled on both sides. Friends said Taylor, still addicted to attention and excitement, found herself flirting with old flames and new admirers alike. Fortensky, for his part, struggled with the constant media glare and the reality that he'd never be more than Elizabeth Taylor's husband. Their marriage ended in 1996, but the pair remained close until her death. For Taylor, Fortensky was a final attempt at finding love beyond scandal. But even her last romance couldn't escape the shadows of her past affairs, proof that, for some icons, the chase never really ends. The price of passion. Elizabeth Taylor's affairs weren't just private dramas. They were public events that shaped the way America talked about love, lust, and loyalty. Every time Taylor fell in or out of love, the press feasted on her pain. Her every move was documented, analyzed, and dissected by a voracious public who both envied and condemned her. But the impact went far beyond tabloid fodder. Taylor's willingness to love recklessly, to pursue desire no matter the cost, changed the rules for every celebrity who followed. She made it possible to survive, sometimes even thrive, after public disgrace. In doing so, she forced Hollywood to confront its own double standards. Men could cheat and be forgiven, but women were supposed to suffer in silence. Taylor broke that mold, sometimes at a devastating personal price. Her affairs destroyed friendships, broke up families, and left scars that never fully healed. But they also inspired millions, especially women, to demand more from life, love, and themselves. Taylor lived as if the world was hers to conquer, and though she often paid dearly, she never apologized for her desires. The legacy of her affairs isn't just about betrayal, it's about boldness. Taylor showed us what happens when you refuse to play by anyone else's rules, even if it means living in a whirlwind that never truly dies down. Elizabeth Taylor's love life was never just about romance. It was about power, freedom, and the defiant pursuit of happiness, even when the cost was heartbreak, scandal, or the loss of friends. In every era, she shattered expectations, dared to love whom she pleased, and forced a changing world to keep up with her. So next time you hear the word affair, remember, for Taylor, it wasn't just a tabloid headline. It was a way of life, lived out loud and on her own terms. What's your take? Was Elizabeth Taylor a victim of her passions or the ultimate survivor of Hollywood's toughest game? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want more untold stories from Hollywood's golden age, be sure to subscribe and ring that bell. Because in this town, the truth is always more outrageous than the rumors.